Hi, Mohammed. I think pronounced perfectly, right? Or not?
Exactly.
The
No,
first
perfect.
time I managed to pronounce the first name somehow reasonable on the show. So, what was your first computer?
My first computer, oh, it's back then to 1997. It was AMD,
Okay.
uh, 199 megahertz. I have like 2 gig RAM, uh, you know,
Yeah.
and there is no sound card. There is no this. This was like auxiliary.
Okay.
Just you have the computer and you have DOS, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Was it the K6? You remember?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, K6, 199
Yeah.
megahertz
I had one
at that
K6
time. Yeah.
233. It was my one of my servers, and the problem with the AMD back then they were running hot. What I remember, they consumed a lots of
Yes,
power,
yes.
and they yeah.
Exactly. Then I switched to Intel based,
Hmm.
and it was like amazing.
Exactly.
And at that time also I was assembling computers, so it was like a very nice journey to have these parts and assembling computers for my neighbors,
Hmm.
for my friends. Then I started joining Pfizer as a desktop support engineer. So I was initially working in hardware,
Oh, okay. But
like
wait a second. Your very first computer you just assembled?
yes,
The
yes.
very
I
first?
studied in
Oh, okay.
the very first, yes.
And
And
so what you did after you assembled the computer? What is your first action? You started to programming, or you start gaming, or what you did with that?
I was exploring just the DOS because it's for me, it's something new. I don't know how to start. Then I start to use Basic,
Uh huh.
Quick Basic, you remember?
Yeah.
So as a like programming language, and it was wow. And then when I start to join the college after a while,
Wait a second. With the
and
basic is interesting because I started earlier with ZX Spectrum and the basic was just there. So if you launched the computer, the basic
yes,
was there. I got later a DOS box, but it was
hmm
8086, so it was earlier, way earlier than yours.
hmm
But I got the DOS, but there was no basic. So I always wondered myself, how to start programming on the thing because I could just, copy files. I remember copy and move the
yes,
yeah, exactly, and
having
slashes and
batch
backslashes
files, automate
exactly, and but I had no
exactly.
idea where you got the QBasic. Was it on your disk or how you got the idea that you can actually load QBasic to your computer?
This is from the my college.
Ah, okay.
So we were taking some topics about it, and they gave it on the disk. Then I can start QBasic. Then it's
Ah, okay.
open the blue, yeah,
Hmm.
it's open the blue screen, and you start programming, and it's all like very nice. But it's a procedural at the end. So you
Yeah, yeah,
have one program at a time, but it was like fantastic. You don't have to do assembly.
yeah.
You know, it was really hard to do this, and I learned about C++ plus plus at
So,
that time.
so you
Java
started,
wasn't so popular.
but you started
Java,
before college, right, with the computer. So you started in
yes,
1997, you
yes.
said, and how old were you back then, roughly?
This is I was 17 years old, to be
Ah,
honest,
okay. Hmm.
and this is was when I started to go to my diploma.
Hmm.
I had a diploma in computer systems engineering
Hmm.
and electronics.
Hmm.
So since then, I start to do this kind of, touching the computer. I get the computer, then I say like I studied about the hardware. Then I decided no, I would like to assemble my computer because in 19s, 90 something, starting from this era, it was telecommunication era, and also the computer start to raise as a desktop. There is no laptop
Yeah, yeah,
concept.
yeah,
There is no mobile phone. There is
yeah,
nothing.
exactly.
And then it was an exciting journey to assemble a computer.
Yeah, but what interests me, this was as you were 17. What happened between 0 and 17? Were you interested in hardware, computers, electronics, or how it happened that with 7?
Nothing. No,
So but
nothing. I
how you
don't
got
know in.
like you woke up and said today is the day to build a computer, or what happened?
No, it wasn't like this. My dream before, I didn't get in touch with like electronics, but I remember in secondary school, I have one of my colleague. He was nerd, and he is very focusing and always getting back home, working with electronics, doing some boxes, controlling light, controlling things. I love this, but I don't know since then how to go in this direction.
Okay.
But I have like advice from when I went to introduce myself, like to search for a college to go. I was like focusing on military and this kind of stuff because, or like my uncle, like mechanical engineer. So, the money was the driver always. It's not about the
Yeah.
passion because we were young. Then I get some advice from the dean he told me, why you didn't want to try, for example, to go to computer engineering? It's a new section and telecommunication things. This is a new norm. Like, no, computer is a gaming. So what I'm not interested to just to play games. Like, he told me, dude, it's not just about gaming. It's a huge science. Like, that. Then he told me, okay, you can go to like some sections. You can take some sections and decide then, because your grades allow you to have this computer system engineering like section. Okay, I don't have any problem. He gets somehow convinced me, because we were hard to be convinced. Then I started, and when I first introduced, I introduced to logic, computer logic, computer hardware and architecture, and also engineering drawing. This is something because I love drawing. This is one of my hobbies. And then I found like, oh,
what are you drawing? What are you drawing now?
Drawing now, no. This is now shifted to be photography.
Okay, and before that, so what do you like to draw?
I liked to draw natural like scenes.
Oh, cool.
You know, miming some city scenes.
Okay.
Sightseeing, something like this, natural. So I'm trying to see how God created for us some beautiful things. How can I do it with my eyes? Then when I have the passion in software, I don't have time to do drawing like before. So I was thinking, what is the second choice is photography. Because if you know how to photograph, you will understand how to utilize your eyes. You will understand your eye, because the camera is your eye. You know, then you have to understand how to take a beautiful pictures.
Now a question about photography, just excursion. So you are almost an artist. So if you take a picture, do you think it is allowed to post-process the picture with creative software like Photoshop or Affinity Photo or something like that, or it should be kept pure without any editing and retouching? So what's your point? So is this more artistic? Afterwards, you just take the picture as a raw material and then you can do whatever you like with that? Is this your approach, or just to say, no, I took the picture, it has to be like this?
It's based on how the challenge is, but I always have it as a philosophy to say, like, whenever the situation, whenever the mood, and you would like to have a shot, take it, and you can process later on. You can enhance it. But what if I'm not going to wait until the mood and circumstances become good to have a good scene?
Okay.
I need to take this shot. I'm not in this place anymore for longer. I don't know when I can, we are traveling, so we don't know when we could come again to that place or the situation. So I take the photo. If it needs processing, yes, why not? Okay. And sometimes you have to do processing to enhance or for product, for things, to show some certain aspects. So yes, why not?
So you can do some HDR tricks to make it look really great. Okay, perfect. Okay.
Exactly. There is no harm and there is no problem in this.
No harm. But there are like two camps. Some puristic
but
photographs.
You will not. But you will not ever find puristic photographs. It will be very hard because it depends on the circumstances, especially if you are taking photographs on the in nature. You don't have artificial lights. You don't have anything to adjust. It's just like that. You have to take it.
And later if the camera does some, pre-processing and post-processing, so there is nothing puristic anymore, except with exactly. Okay, so this was just excursion because I was curious. And you also told me you were interested in military. So you thought about...
Yes, at the beginning.
Okay. Yeah, because you look dangerous, So that's okay. Maybe you were some... Okay. Do you know Mark Fleury?
I'm very happy to join.
Do you heard about Mark Fleury? This is the guy who invented JBoss. Who started JBoss.
Yeah.
Actually, he was on the podcast and we had a chat. And he was in special forces and studied math at the same time. So it was interesting combination. I thought you are the second one, who is like special forces, photograph and hacker.
Photograph helped me actually to be honest in the way that I can review my colleagues like UI and UX, because it extended me how to understand the coloring, how to understand the composition. Then it turned me to understand and study UI and UX architecture and engineering as well, because I love this part. So I'm always focusing in UI and UX and how to organize the components, how it look like, the CSS. Then I start to work heavily with CSS3, HTML5, and all of this kind of stuff, which helps me also to do my workshops. And, because as a back-end engineers, always it's not interesting for people. They need to see something.
Yeah.
You know, you show code or you show visual.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So it helped me in this way also.
Yeah.
So pixelization thing, so I can understand my colleagues, so I can review their work as well, or give my input.
So very good. Area. So because of a nerdy guy, nerdy friend of yours,
yes.
Yeah, you were. You saw him, hacking
it's
at home.
Connected.
Yeah, and then you started building your first machine. If you build your first machine, where the parts hard to get? Where you grew up? Where was it?
Mm-hmm. It was in Cairo, Egypt.
Ah, okay. Was it where the pieces hard to find, or
no? Because at that time we have a lot of computer like shops, and they provide hardware pieces, and it comes usually at that back then from America and Europe. It wasn't from China, because it wasn't that time. China is so famous like this, and we have the component normally, or we have to wait for the shipment. But it was like huge computer shops and malls even, so we can easily pick up the components, build whatever we want. But it was like always it's about the hardware more than the software at that time. And it's the internet wasn't the concept. It was the telecommunication is the main driver for all. And I remember when I even went to the college for my department, we were like 45 students in my computer engineering section, and 1,500 students in the telecommunication department. So can you imagine how people were focusing at the time, and people like, oh, this is very small like department, you will not find a job and everything. And at the end of the 5 years of engineering, I decided to switch to software because I loved it. This is why I graduated as a software major electrical engineer and specialization computer systems engineer. And since first day I graduated, I was joining a company to start working as a web developer using Java.
Interesting. What I wanted to tell you was the pieces, because it's interesting. In Germany, it was a little different, because we had lots of huge computer malls, but they were just ready to buy computers. The pieces, individual pieces, were harder to find. So usually in these shops, you got some hardware, generic hardware, but was not very good one. For instance, what I remember, I think back then Intel was easier to get than AMD because not as popular.
Yes.
And I had to travel about 80 kilometers to Munich to get, there were small shops, and in the small shops, there were just the pieces, but not the entire computer. So there were specific, specific specialist shops where you could buy the parts, and you could get whatever you liked, but they were just the parts. And, in the mainstream malls, you could only buy ready-to-use computers, as I remember. So it was harder to get the pieces. And the interesting part now, because I had the conversation with you, why I built the first computer, because I always know why I did it. And I remember now why. Because I wanted to have Unix, and Unix was crazy expensive. And we had HPUX, and I wanted to have something similar, but it was impossible to buy it. So I tried to search, but there was nothing. And I wanted, to have C and C++. And I heard about Linux. And to install Linux on the same machine as Windows was crazy. I tried that, but it always messed up with my master boot record, so it never worked actually. So I have to experiment with the Linux loader and stuff like that, and never worked actually. So the easiest possible thing is to buy a new computer. The problem was, the new computers always come with Windows license, and they were not that great. And I wanted to know a very simple computer with simple graphic card, because there were not a lot of drivers for Linux. So I built, a simple...
Was it
what?
Was it like SS3 graphic driver? Because it was
What I remember, I used there was one of the earlier Red Hat distribution even. So there was 1995, 1996. And what I had to do is I have disassembled the machine and look at the chip, which chip was it? And I have to enter the chip ID to the what's it called? To the text-based configuration of the Xserve.
BIOS.
No, Linux in the Linux driver.
No, I didn't. We were different. We were like Microsoft oriented. So I didn't get in touch with Linux until I graduated even from the college.
But the conversation with you, I remembered why I built actually my own machines. Because I thought strange why I didn't just bought, ready-to-use computer. And then I remember, this was the reason. Because, if you would buy something ready-to-use, probably Linux wouldn't run properly on it. At the beginning, now it's completely different. And this is actually, I just wanted, to capture this because I've completely forgot it. So, cool. So you build your, in Cairo, complete different situation. There were shops with computer parts. So
yes, because the ready-made on the other side was like Dell, IBM. And this is where I found in Pfizer, Egypt, because they will not build like custom made. They always buy from distributors like Dell or IBM. And even the hardware like AS400, like mainframe, because I was working with mainframe as a distributed like machine and we have, I remember AS400 as a computer, and the programming language I forget about. It's
RPG.
Not called RPG, exactly. With the green titles. Text
terminal.
And the background is black and terminal.
And probably DB2 database, or it was called differently.
Yes, exactly. And it was super huge. And we have tape-based backups, know.
Question. So, but what's interesting now, we had excursion to hardware, but you started with QBasic. What was your next language?
Yes. Next language, it was C++, definitely. Okay. And then I start to get like Windows. It's not Windows. Let's call it. They call it Windows 11, 3.1, which was graphical interface for DOS.
Yeah, exactly.
It's finally it's a graphical interface for DOS. So it was like wow, but I didn't use it so much. After a while, we have Windows 95.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was like for me a dramatical change. And I remember that time I changed my computer to have this. And I wasn't able to shut down my computers. Like it starts, I press the button and it starts. That's very nice. I start to play with the mouse, the concept of the mouse, keyboard and everything which we had for a long time. And then how to shut down. Yeah. Oh my God. I start to call my colleagues, my friends, like what to do. And my nerd friend, I get back to him like, man, you just click start. There is something called shutdown.
Yeah.
Click it. I told him, is it simple like that? He told me yes. So thank you. I tried. Then I was like so proud going with I can't start and shut down my computer. No.
Yeah, because it's crazy. To shut down Windows, you had to push the start button, right?
Yes, because normally we just close and that's it.
Yeah, I also had 1995, 1997, and even Millenium was. Or 1998.
Millennium.
Or 1997 or 1998, I forgot. There was like Windows
1998.
1998, exactly.
Yes.
And then
because it's between 95 and 98. It was Windows Millennium.
Exactly. Very good. So, what was the most impressive, or which programs do you started to program with? So, what was your first QBasic program or software you wrote? Do you remember that?
It was like counters, like mathematical, like equations. Then I start to learn about, and I tried to mimic my mathematical study and how to do this equation inside QBasic. Then I start to get in touch, like how could I module, because it was like long procedure. And I was looking how to have some part of the code. It's like a function or something like this. And also jumping with labels, because you don't have this kind of, it should run in one sequence and I need to jump. So the idea of the function came to my mind, like I can have some codes and some specific blocks, and then I can jump in and out from that, and how it was working. Then in the second year and the third year in my college, I start to have Java. And since then, I really admire it. Then I start to do all my side projects for the college or outside as a freelance during even when I was studying using Java.
But why were you so impressed by Java? Why you were so impressed by Java and
the object-oriented?
But C++
concept.
was a little bit object-oriented, right?
A little bit, yes, but it was hard because the memory management and this kind of concept and the pointers and this, it was very hard to grasp at that time because we were young a little bit. But Java for us, it hides a lot of boilerplate things that you have to be in low level, and just you focus on the programming language itself.
Yeah.
That's it. So as a student, it was for me more convenient than spending my time doing assembly or something, writing 100 line in order to print something, for example, using assembly. You know how it was very hard, and you have to see the registers, and you understand the register, you understand your like processor architecture in order to which register you have to program, and you know, all of this kind of stuff. Why I have to bother myself with all of this if I didn't do any low programming, low hardware programming? You know, I'm not doing driver programming or something like this or graphics. It's just a programming language.
And which version was it of Java? You remember?
1.1, and I was certified even before my graduation at the last year with my project 1.2.
Oh, certified! You are certified Java developer.
Yes, yeah.
And
yes, 1.2.
And programmer as well.
Programmer as well.
The programmer's certification was crazy hard. Remember that?
Yes. It wasn't that easy because it
was hard. It was crazy hard because at the very beginning of the certification, what I remember, there were multiple choice questions, but the number of right answers was not known. And there were some things which looked right for Java, but were wrong, and something which looked completely wrong. What I remember, you know, there was a two-dimensional array where, you know, the brackets started, then the name and the brackets was end. So you would never write such a thing, but it's a perfect valid thing to do, you know. And they ask, is it right or not? So for me, I say, okay, this is completely wrong, but it could actually compile, right? So I have to say, the programmer certification was really hard. I also had it because it was like a sport for me. But if I look at the questions, I say this is crazy.
Yes, it was hard, and also most of the questions also doesn't compile. So it depends on your experience. If you just study Java and go to the exam, mostly you will fail. If you don't really work, if you don't really have hands-on experience, you will not know that it's look perfect and everything, but there is runtime errors. It's always about runtime errors more, not just so simple questions for compilation error. Then it goes for runtime errors most of the time.
Yeah. I also remember the question where, you know, there was a switch case and the default was at the beginning. And I thought, it's like, well, who writes that? But I mean, what happens now, right? So, and this was crazy times. Okay, nice. So, interesting that you also did the exams. So, okay, so you were somehow competitive, right? So if you did, you know, all the exams and you would like to be, you know, a good programmer. So I think okay. So it's more fun.
Yeah, and then I start to catch with Java EE 1.4.
Why that?
I remember because because of the company I work for, and they are obsessed with Java, and I start even to look for the Java certificate, and I certified Java EE 1.4 at that time, and then Java EE 5 when I joined Oracle first time, and I certified. I migrated my certificate to Java even SE5 as well.
Wait a sec. So at the study you learned Java. What was the most impressive? No, studied. You learned Java. What was the most impressive or most interesting application you wrote during your study? Was it anything which you wrote?
My
your first program in Java? What you did with Java there?
The first program in Java, which is it opened my mind to how the Java is really can give you all what you want. Is I studied graphics, computer graphics, and you know, like the basic graphics, and then after like long time of studying this, like one semester, we had always a project to apply what we have studied. So I have chosen Java, and at that time we have two framework SDKs for OpenGL and DirectX with Java. So I choose to use DirectX. It was OpenGL with Java to build like Maze as a game. And using texture, using walls, using physics in order to have this game, just a human like viewport, and you are going through the maze, and if you hit the wall you cannot even move. You just those are your borders. So we have to have like the center and the gravity and, you know, the collision detection at that point. So it was like amazing for me because I applied mathematics, science, the graphic part, you know, it's all related. So texture based, and it was mixing. So crazy. This was the most, it was crazy and it's nice.
Okay. So impressive. So, I mean, your first program in QBasic, was a equation, and the first Java program was like a 3D maze. Really impressive.
This is not the first. It was like some small programs to deal with Java programming language. Working with files was something really amazing at that time. You read file, you close file, you write the data in the file, so you can save it. Oh my God, I can have my
what
data.
I remember now.
Then I loved the database.
What I also did with Java, I wrote a software which split a larger file to floppy disks. Was also very fascinated by that, because there was like 500K, I think. So I created chunks and I was able to distribute the file to floppy disk and reconstruct it afterwards. So it was trivial, but I really enjoyed that. So I remember this. Nice. So and during the study, you started to work as a freelancer?
Yes, I was working like doing some side projects. I used different things. I used like Visual Basic, the Microsoft oriented. It was very famous at that time. It's very nice to build like GUI based application using Visual Basic. It was so professional. And there is Microsoft Office also introduced Microsoft Access as a concept of database. So because I love the database, and also you can in the same file you have graphical user interface which read from the database, and you can provide reports. So it's like ready-made solution to have, like for financial institution at that time, to give like shared file that combine the visual part with the database and provide reports. And all of these are connected because I was studying the main pure topics about database, operating systems and things. And then I wanted to see how I could do this in practical way, in the applied way. So I use different software, but my main focus goes more and more, even after my graduation project. I used the C# at that time to see the Microsoft. I was like, but my bias really goes to Java more. And since I certificate, I find the job after just 2 months of my graduation. I applied for a company. Even my certificate doesn't even release at that time. It takes some time to have a signature from the dean. The university took some time, but no, I have like just temporary certificate that I have passed my exam. I have the GPA for my graduation project, and that's it. Then I start working in Java, and since then I didn't change Java in my career ever. I just get more advanced and get in touch more.
So you had some interesting project. What was the first company you worked? What was the project?
First company I worked for, it was, it's called Silicon Expert, and it was mainly, at that time, it was very important to have the features of electronic parts for the big vendors like IBM, Dell, HP, because they are interested to know the features about the semiconductors. And in order to have this component and data sheets and everything, they should be resides in database, and you have to provide queries to provide like similarities between some component, the ROHS free, in order to use this component in their product. So we were developing such a software and platform for such a companies. And so it was like, I used Oracle database at that time. I remember it was this is the main, and we used Java in order to program this. This is why I get in touch with the web. And I start to focus on how to get certified. Back then, I used GSP, EL expressions, expression language, to program inside GSP. The container was AS. It was Sun Microsystem container. And then when Oracle bought Bea WebLogic, we used Bea WebLogic before it becomes Oracle WebLogic. And then was the first company and I first work and get in touch with Java web framework, not the desktop part.
The Sun Enterprise Server became GlassFish later, and now it's Payara.
Exactly. Yes, Sun Enterprise Server. Exactly, it was this one.
Okay, interesting. And you basically access the database or expose the Oracle database to the web through an application server. This was
using
e-commerce
JDBC
solution.
at that time. Yes, exactly. Almost we can say like this, but there is no framework, there is no Hibernate, there is no JPA at that time. It's only pure JDBC. And you know how it was very hard to manage.
Yeah, what I did, similar project.
And you have to be really, really,
I used Java Web Server. And this was like even earlier. And my first project was JSPs as well, Java Server Pages with JDBC. but I use already Java beans. And if you had Java beans, you could have the use bean, I think, EL, where, from the getters and setters, they could be populated from JDBC. So there's a kind of, very simplistic data binding, and we use struts, or we try, to recreate struts from scratch multiple times.
Yes, we used the struts at that time. It was the famous framework at then. And then since GSF started to appear, but I used GSF in the second company, actually.
What was the second company?
The second company, after that, I worked for a tourism company. I built a website for hotel booking. Then I didn't stay for long. Then I joined a company called Intercom Enterprise, and they were partner for IBM. This is how I get in touch with IBM product. Their ID based on Eclipse, and then I start more working with GSF, Java EE 1.4, EGP. At that time, it was like low. EGP especially, it was very, very, very hard to manage, because even you should define some boilerplate interfaces just to make the framework work. If you are using remote interfaces, you have to have home interface, local interfaces,
local remote interface. But
I don't need them.
Yeah, you're right. But back then, it was hard to do something else because we didn't have the annotation stuff,
Yes.
And the code, the code, there were no dynamic proxies. This was prior to JDK. Yeah, and if you have no dynamic proxies and no annotations, the code was generated. So what happened was that the aspects were generated between the interface and the class. The problem was, of course, if the signature of the methods didn't fit, then you get deployment errors because the code generation failed, and this was the problem. But I think this was fixed as soon as Java 5 came out. So then we got the annotations, and then it looked like an EGB became Java class with an interface, right? So this was, and one annotations, and you were set. Yeah, this was fixed. Because people always criticize EGBs, and back then it was hard, but what you can do.
It was hard because it was limited capabilities.
Yeah, but if you would just, back then, I think if they would implement the interface, like a class with an interface, they would have to generate, something else between, because what the entire enterprise is working with is proxies. So you always need something with STASI transaction security. So you need the stuff in between. And without dynamic proxies, only code generation is working. So
exactly.
I mean, what you can do, right? You need some kind of interface, which and you need some glue between, and the glue was generated. So this is the problem of the early enterprise frameworks prior to JDK 1.3. I think proxies came out in JDK 1.3. But where you started at the IBM company, was it 2003? I would say 2004.
It was 2000 and 2004. 2006.
Okay. So this was already were Java 6 around, I think, in 2006, right?
Yeah. Yes. But there is no much adoption at that time.
IBM.
And this is why when I joined at the end of leaving the company, I was certified Java SE5 Tiger. I remember.
Yeah, Tiger,
at that time, because we had names. And I was obsessed with the annotations. And when I start to work, I think that in Egypt even I was the first person who certified this and web components, because since we have Java 5, we start to even split the certificates for web framework. It wasn't just Java EE web certificate. It's become web component, EGP, web services, and GPA certificates like start to be splitting even more. Then I start to have web component certificate 1.6. I remember, and then I was really hardly studying more and more. Hardly means I did a lot of effort to do in order to grasp all the Java EE5 at that time with Java SE. And this is how I get an opportunity to work in Oracle. And I was also studying ADF as a framework using JDeveloper.
So the active
Oracle Development Framework.
Exactly. ADF. This is the
ADF.
JSF
it was
framework
based
from
on GS,
Oracle.
Exactly. With customized UI with some CSS and things. And also you can use XML to configure as a backend. You don't have to use AGP things, but I was able to avoid their backend as a component ADF components and used AGP because I loved the AGP framework that time, and with annotation using Java EE, and just I used ADF as a front end component.
So you worked for Oracle?
I was able to mix them.
You worked for Oracle?
I worked for Oracle starting since 2007. I was because Oracle in Egypt, it was just support center.
It didn't
and sales.
So that you are Oracle guy. I thought you are a freelancer or whoever. That's interesting. So I never knew that you actually worked at Oracle. Interesting.
This is the only, we can say, I know that you are always freelancer.
Yeah.
You never join the company and you do your work like that. And I am proud of you of this. And you stay like this. I always also have a scene that I'm always working for not giant companies. I'm working always for normal companies, and even they are big. It doesn't mean, because this is also, I have this criticized, and sometimes I have these things like people look to you based on your company you work for.
Yeah.
They don't look for you how you are so professional. So if you are working for Google, IBM, I think they are superhero. Yeah, there is a lot of other companies doing a lot of hard projects and scalable projects, but the people working there, they are super genius and they are really, really hard work and really very high ranked. So it doesn't mean that you're not working for such a giant companies, means that you are not really good ranked or you are not doing hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
So I decided always to work for a company. Now, let's say like when I joined Oracle, yes, I learned a lot about like processes and things. And when they start to think about how to open a development center in Egypt, because back then it was the acquisition for Oracle for Sun Microsystems. And, Oracle supports website, it called MetaLink at that time. And we have to do all the work in order to integrate Siebel, JD Edwards, BIA WebLogic, Sun Microsystems support centers in one place in order to support others. And the big acquisition and the sad news at that time that my Sun Microsystems just need to be bought. Either it was by IBM or Oracle. It was like a race. Then it bought by Oracle, and
you like
we went through this
back then?
journey.
You liked Sun?
I loved Sun.
Yeah.
Sun was like my mother.
Yeah.
We felt like this is our mother. Really, I loved Sun and I loved the logo, and so I was so proud to be in such company, working with their products, promoting them. It has a different feeling. Then we were so sad when we knew after this recession that Sun should be acquired with Sun because it couldn't run anymore. Like, why? It's a huge company. No, we cannot. Java will die and everything. But thank you for the community who really stand behind Java to stay strong. And yes, I can see sometimes Oracle. Yes, Oracle is finally a company. They are looking for revenue, and they have to have revenue from what they bought. But also the people inside try to push Java because finally all the Oracle products run over Java, even the database. They have the GDK internal.
But what you shouldn't forget about such acquisitions is that, the Sun people are still working on Oracle. I mean, this is the same people, different label, and the spirit is the same. And what I have to say, Oracle does better than I expected. So I think it was a good choice, and also Oracle is more, strategy or money driven. I would say the Java does well, and they do a really great stuff with GraalVM and whatever they with Helidon and all the parts. This is crazy stuff what they are doing, and also now the Java podcast with David Delabase and all the stuff, crazy stuff. I would say like fresh air, and Java is very innovative. So I would, and it looks like for me like the second wave. Now they're picking the speed again, So I would say now it looks great. What is not as exciting as what sometimes. Sometimes it was crazier, with the Sun people. There was a little bit, I don't know how to call it, more like a hippie company, like peace, love, and Java or something like this. Complete different story.
Because this was the base product for Sun Microsystems. Yes, they are a hardware company. This is what we knew about, and they need to utilize. This is why Oracle bought actually Sun Microsystems, because of the hardware. It's so advanced, it's so nice, and also they have to keep Java. And it was shady, at that time. And Oracle is multi companies inside one company. So they cannot just focus on Java. But at the recent years, they did a great job in order to bring Java back again to the speed, as you have said. Yes, I totally agree with you. And now with the recent changes and everything, we are really catching up with most of the languages. And now I can say again, yes, I can do everything with Java. I don't have to switch to another language, do what I want, because we have a lot of things backed, and people cannot even catch the speed of Java nowadays with the features and everything. So if we were slow and background compatible and everything, people, oh, Java is so slow and everything like. But it's a huge language, and you will never find language that support this. Run once, write once, run anywhere, because the background compatibility. But it has a price. You know, everything has a price. And if you need to catch up, we have to break this concept. We have to have removal for deprecated stuff. We have to modularize the GDK in order to do this. And I think the guy is really successful in doing this 6 release cadence, and especially with GDK 16 and upcoming 17 even.
Perfect. So you started, so you worked at Oracle then, and you started, we stopped talking about the integration. So JD Edwards and Siebel and whatever was bought, you were involved in the integration, what I understood.
Yes.
And when was your first Java 1? When was your first Java 1?
Java 1, 2009. 2009, because I left Oracle 2000 by the end of 2007 and joined efinance. And efinance, I stayed for 10 years. The concept of efinance, it's a financial company, services.
And why you joined the other company? Was it a more interesting job, or just occurred, or why you left Oracle and joined the other company? Just because you want to switch gear? I don't know, switch use cases, or
no? I was always I get a job for Vodafone at that time and everything, but efinance was for me like it's a national company, and I will do something really that will help the country.
Interesting.
This was the point, and to help the country automate all of these kind of problems that I am one as a citizen face every day, either with taxes, either with pension, either with my neighbors, my mother-in-law, my father, everyone. I see this. So how I could help in my community using the technological side to facilitate all of this kind of stuff for my people. This was the really enthusiasm about this. And I get a call from the CEO at that time, and that they are interested to hire me. So it was like they picked me up because we were so few good people working in some companies back then. Then I went to the company. I did like an interview with the CTO. I remember there is no developers. It was like only the board. They are constructing the company, doing the contract and everything with the government. And actually it was a private company which is funded by the government.
Perfect.
So it means all the public fund by the government, but you have the authority to work as a private. We don't interfere with the internal procedure and work. But as a board, we are Ministry of Investment. We are the National Bank of Egypt. We are the Ministry of Finance, and also Social Solidarity and some other banks, because it's a huge. We funding money under the government law, and you are a private company. So it's like we are working. They are funding money, and the revenue is for the government at the end. So it was challenging because I'm going to have a project that deal with citizens, millions of citizens, different integrations part. And then you have to utilize the concept and the work and the technology. Then I started the Java department in this company, and I hired all the engineers. I remember I didn't have like ticketing system. We were using Excel. Then I found it's very, very hard to manage, because then I started to introduce Jira at that time. So it was the first like ticketing system we used, and they loved it. And then we start to have it like this. I started definitely working with Java 5. I used WebLogic. And we have to work with commercial product. Definitely we choose Oracle database. And we have IBM, we have SQL Server for different, platforms and environments. And then we start to hire, then we have .NET engineers as well. And then because it's based on the nature and the speed of the projects, if it's So this is how we started, and then I started as a senior software engineer, and after 10 years I left Oracle. I left efinance as a deputy director for the whole sector.
Crazy. So,
yeah.
Even better. Never knew that you are deputy director. So actually, you were always nice. We had a nice chat, but I had no idea for whom you are working. So I was surprised. I never had the idea that you worked for Oracle. Now you are deputy director. It's perfect. I thought you are very good, like, strategic, high-end consultant. This was my impression. They are working, as architect for different companies, also hacking some stuff. Yeah, but now I know you efinance. And
in efinance, I went through a lot of stuff because the revolutions and the wars happening. This is why I started to participate in United Nations project. This is why I won Duke Choice Award for 3 times in a row for the participation in United Nations projects for refugees in Egypt. And also
what
this project was a reference.
What was it? What you
did? It was. I built the project actually.
Yeah, but what did the project?
Because
how was it built? What was it? And yeah. Just explain a bit. United Nations.
During the 2011, we have this in the Arab Spring, and we have the wars in some places, like in Syria, when the regime destroyed their country and the interface, the people start to evacuated from their country. Some goes to Europe, definitely Egypt, and then they wanted the United Nations and the World Food Bank would like to give donations for these people. And they should have programs running, and they would like to build a program in order to have this donation in term of points, or and they can get cards, and you can go to supermarket to get it as a term of goods or money. And also they give donations for poor people. There is some people in Egypt, there is some people in Africa, there is some people coming as a result from the war, or normally people that they doesn't have any income even in your country or something like this. So they told us about the requirement. They were searching about the company that was working with really deep down with the government. So it was efinance, and the government recommended us. Then I was at the beginning. I had the meetings with the United Nations bodies, and we talked about the projects, that everything. Then I came back with my team and the company, and it wasn't like normal just software. It was software and hardware and strategic, and there is a lot of integration between ministries to provide this, and we came up with like a solution and model. We presented, we get the approval, and we start building it. And it was very tight because the time boundary, always the hardest thing that we had, because changing the government, changing the people would like to fund, and they are depending on the dates, release dates. So it was agile concept with waterfall, with a lot of stuff. And I work it. Also, I always like to work with the latest and cutting edge technology. It was strange because people always like to work with stabilized releases, and I always eager to. So there is Java EE 6 or 7. Let's use it. We didn't test it yet. Let's use it. We will figure it out. This is how we gain experience, guys. Same like Oracle, same like mobile development, everything. I was always have this idea. I love to use the latest. Then I found the opportunity to join the GCP.
By the way, this is not that strange, because if you are in strategic project and you are a little bit confident and you are using the latest stuff, what happens is if you find a bug and you submit the bug gets fixed.
Exactly.
Because the engineers are working on the current stuff, But if you are using the stabilized, this is old branch. No one is interested. It fixes the branch,
yes.
The bug. What can happen? That you will have to pay, for commercial support in order to get the bug fixed. So from my perspective, there are 2 strategies in projects. Either you're getting the latest stuff, and if there are some bugs, you have to deal with them, or you use a later stabilized stuff, but then you will need a commercial support, because in order something happens, you can pay someone who fixed the bug for you, right?
Yeah, this is one of the points, as you have mentioned, commercial support, because it was very hard to introduce the concept of using open source projects inside the government. It was like nightmare. No, we need paid project. Like, why? There is open source, there is no trust. And I was successful to introduce this because the project size and the price drastically get reduced. Why? Because they don't trust. Always the people would like to blame. If they would like to have failure, they would like to blame someone else.
Politics.
Then
Which stack have you used in the EU project, United Nations? I mean,
yes, I used Java EE7 at that time.
Wow. Okay.
It was and GlassFish.
Wow.
And I opened, yes, as you have said exactly, we opened 6 bugs for GlassFish, especially in CDI, WebSockets, and the container itself for EGB. We opened 4 bugs for GDK at that time, and 1 for GlassFish itself, and because of the time zone. And they get fixed quickly because they have interest, really. Or they give us workaround.
Yeah.
You know?
Was it a memory leak in CDI? I'm just curious. Remember that?
CDI, something related to memory.
Because it was roughly in Christmas 2009, 2010. We also had a critical bug in GlassFish, which was CDI and memory leaks.
Exactly.
Was it productive? Was it successful, the project? I mean, were you happy with the choice?
Yes. Okay. It was a huge success, and this is why we launched it. And we get the fund, and it was working. We produced the cards, and the people start to get their money. And this is how they announce in the United Nations they are successful. And then the project get deployed in many other countries in Africa.
Perfect.
This is why I get in touch with some people. They are in GCP during the meeting, because like, I saw you before. Yeah, you are Mohammed Saman. You are part of the GCP and this, yes. But then the conversation starts because you are meeting somebody from here and here and here, but you don't know, the people are working differently for some stuff. It was even from people from Kenya and Nigeria, I remember, yes. And it was like blueprint because nobody uses Java E7 because it was like in the development, and I used it as it was reference implementation, and I used it. So this is why I get the Duke Choice Award, because I used the latest technologies. And that time in 2007 or 8, or I was talking about this on the Java strategic keynote.
Exactly. I remember
I was with Red Hat, Mark Little. Yes, exactly. Mark Little, I had a conversation with him, and Raza Rahman was introducing me and helped me to get into when he was working for Oracle. And he told me, like, you did a very great job with Java EE, and we would like to show this to the people. And it was, I think, the last Java one before it became Code One. 2007.
Then it was later, 2009. I think so. It was even later.
9 or 7 or 8. No, later. Sorry. It was either 9 or 10.
Oh, interesting.
2009 or 10.
And this EU project was like your hobby project, or was it the official project for the efinance company, or how was it?
It was official project. It was official project.
Official. So there was a different company, a different. Okay, so switch the company from EU.
No. For the EU project, you mean?
The United Nations project was the project.
No, it was a tender, and we won the tender in efinance, and I do this.
The efinance company did the project for the government. Okay, very good.
It cannot be a hobby project because it's strategic, and they need a company to take the responsibility and the huge money. And this is also, I get the support from the United Nations technical bodies to start using open source. So this is how I introduced it, even in Egyptian company.
Very good.
After that, when I was doing like solidarity project for just Egyptian government or fuel subsidiary system, they say, like, if we could use open source project as you did in United Nations, we don't have any problem.
Really? Now this is like a rebel,
Yes.
Java
you have to start it anyway. You have to start it.
Do it now and ask for permission later.
Exactly.
Very good. Now I'm really curious. What happens after the United Nations project?
We had this World Food Bank, so it was different project, and then we start to work scalability because we have changing the government on different projects. It wasn't just only financial. It was I worked with the courts, and then what else? Like, there is a lot of project just also with the National Defense Agency in Egypt, the military, the police department also, in order to automate all the driving license, all of this kind of integrations. It was big project.
And was still GlassFish everything?
It was some of this, and yes, the IT guys really love the idea that they don't have to get the support, and it's very easy to manage. Then I was trying to introduce the Dockerization, this nice concept, and also because we have also the concept of operation people. and development people.
Yeah.
And we have fights always. Like delayed releases, and the customer shouting like, you get the requirement, you said that you finished the release, but you cannot say that our operation just get delayed because they are still doesn't have their tests, or they didn't really trust about the things. And we would like to move forward to introduce new JDK, and we couldn't because operation always loves stabilization and hate us as because we always say like, we need to change. No, we don't need. We need stability. I don't need a headache. Then I start to consult like, we have to be like DevOps. We have to be, and IT should be involved. We have to be like this. When I release, you should release because we have claims from the customer. And during that time, DevOps concepts start to raise because of these problems. Then we have some courses. Definitely, we have a lot of like, resistance. But as I always do, like, let's face it, we are going to deploy it. Here it is. Like, what is Dockerization? Examples, It was like this, always fight in order to get what you want. But you have to convince they are strategic and political.
And you are still at the AFI. No, you left as deputy director. So you became the deputy director, and then you say, okay, now I cannot fight anymore because I am the highest ranking CEO or whoever. Now I have to leave the company, right?
Exactly. So I left the company because I believed that I wanted this. In Egypt, unfortunately, it was always, you start your journey as a technical and then you become a manager.
Yeah.
The manager concept means you manage people, politics and things. Yeah. You don't touch code.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be an architect. The architect concept is not, it was shady. Nobody knows, like, what are you going to just like, what is the architect? Yeah. You have to be businessman and you have to be political side. You are fighting this, like, I can do both. The architect is political and business visionary guy, and also very deep technical in order to help his team and the people works with and to find solutions. And I told, this is my title was like deputy director / enterprise architect, because I'm 2GAF certified. So it was like, what is the benefit? Then I start to introduce it. But when I start to go to different companies to hire me to work as a CTO or things, the same concept. Then I decide like, this is not my place anymore. Unfortunately, I have to move outside with the community I worked with, like international community. Then I decided to move out Egypt. Then I went to Serbia, as I based now in Serbia for 3 years. Okay. I worked and stayed in Serbia. I worked for 3 companies as a principal lead engineer, and the people like, you are deputy director, you're going to get back. It doesn't matter.
Still Java.
What I do.
Still Java?
Yes. That's still Java, definitely. And then I joined company called, very famous company in Serbia called Comtrade as an enterprise architect. Then I went to another company called DevTech to work on a UK project for Virgin Train and Airlines as a airlines industry. And unfortunately, we lost the project because of the COVID. Then after that, after 1 year, I joined recently, since last year, Efortel. And Efortel, for me, it was very challenging because, we don't need to work for technology anymore. We bring the technology for the company. I would like to change the domain. I would like to work for the business domain. So my changing the company means changing the domain. So the telecommunication domain is so challenging. And also, it has it's also a very big giant dinosaur. So you have 2 challenges here. It's the scalability and the challenges with telecommunication and industrial everything. And there is no much mature development in this area. It's always all the products, everything stabilized. That comes like financial and banking. The innovation is not coming easy. And when you have a telecommunication company with the mindset of, no, we would like to re-innovate, we would like to use the new technology in order to compete. No, I love this. You combine the challenging environment with the innovation. So you have a lot of shit, sorry to say this, to work on and to clean. Yeah.
And what are you doing? Still Java involved, or?
I'm chief solution architect, yes. And I'm working definitely in Java. We use Java, JPOS, and EGB. My chief information officer, which is my manager, love Java. I love EGB, RMI, really? This kind of stuff. And always, And he did really great jobs. In order to to tweak everything. He fought a lot in order to bring this. And now we are also looking for the new latest thing. We are looking for Quarks because we are JBoss based.
Yeah. From JBoss to Quarkus is actually really nice transitions. Also, what I'm doing a lot.
We're using Wildfly, and as a deployment server, and we're using most of the stack from Red Hat, and we OpenShift for cloud management and all of this. And just I'm trying to introduce the migration for JDK, the latest one. This is
the cool
very
story
interesting for people. Yeah.
If you probably know what I did from the beginning. So it's like, okay, if we do Java EE, so we just pick Java EE and try, not to use too much of external dependency. So you will have to justify an external dependency and so forth. And there are lots of such projects where I was involved with. And now there is Quarkus, Helidon on the horizon. And the cool story is some people ask me, what is to do to migrate, the old project we did, 5 years ago to Quarkus? And I look at the code and I said, actually nothing. Maybe we will have to replace this at stateless with request, scoped, and transactional, and this basically it. So we could introduce a stereotype, and they are stunned. It's like, wow, it's possible. It's like, it's possible because you don't use too many external libraries. If you would use external dependencies libraries with lots of reflection, there will be no way, or it will be really hard to migrate. But because we follow the strategy, the boring strategy, now we can run of the smallest, runtime on Earth. And this is lucky accident, but it works great. So what I also did, this was last year during Corona. I was in a conference in Poland. It's called JDD. Mm-hmm. They invited me, and I remember the name JDD. It's like I was there, and I look at my mailbox, and I found an email from I think 2009 or something. It was 12 years old talk. No, it was later. Regardless, it was more than 10 years. But I introduced Java 6 on stage, and the title was like, the future is now, but it's not evenly distributed yet. Java 6. And I said, okay, let's see. And what I also found, the old code from back then. And and this year at the same conference, 10 years later, I used the old code and deployed that without any modification on the latest JBoss and latest Java. And was also, look, this is actually interesting, right? 10 years ago, we did something on stage. I told you this is the future. Maybe not, but let's see. 10 years later, JBoss is still around, and the code works perfectly without any modification. So now we could, I clean up a little bit the POM because the plugins are no more needed, but it was basically the same code, which is interesting if you think about it. If you, focus on business and ignore the technology a bit, just focus on the boring stuff API, you can win over time because, all the funky frameworks, they tend to die. So if you look, what happened back then, which frameworks we got, they came and go, but, the basic boring stuff remains.
Exactly. I totally agree with you because I always fight against having any external dependency to have in my code base unless it has a reason.
Yeah.
And this is why I liked to, for example, scripting.
Yeah.
We try to teach people like to do using Python in order to do some script, but I told the people like, why you have to do this? We have this kind of capability using Java since Java 11.
Yeah.
So if you are really good Java developer, you can use scripting to do your work, and you don't have to invest in some, and it's much safer even.
Yeah.
So like why JavaScript? Yes, we can do this with shebang notation inside the third mode that we have using single source code base that we have and doing scripting.
Yeah.
And I gave them an example. Wow, we can use it easily. I don't have to switch. Yes, you don't have to switch. Like nowadays, I'm always telling the people, let's use the internal new HTTP module for using all the REST communication and test. You don't have to use another like library because it's built in. And whenever there is like people also say like, you trying to say use this function, don't use this function. Why have to rely on function? Why, for example, objects dot require null validation and this. Why you need to use this? Like, I tell you why. We can do the checks ourselves.
Yeah.
But when you use the function, you have a huge army of the JDK enhancing this library for you.
Exactly.
So you get the fix and enhancement on the fly.
Yeah, and
you don't have to do it yourself.
And you are the deputy director. The problem is if you pick something else, you have to justify why you did it. But if you pick something which is built in, there's no discussion. No one can question why I'm using Java stuff because it's there. I have to justify myself if I will pick third-party library. So this is the strange discussion. And, you spend a lots of time in large companies. My problem was always, to talk about dependencies, frameworks, the entire discussion, which really doesn't matter. So, okay, stop the discussion. We will just use Java. And by the way, you mentioned JDK, HTTP. What I did recently, the first time, I didn't use JAX or S client. I just used, the JDK built-in HTTP client for system testing.
Yes.
Because it's good enough. And then I have to justify even less. I don't have, to say, maybe some people don't like Java E. It's okay, then you don't have to use Java E. We can use still JDK, but there are no third-party dependencies, right?
Exactly. And nobody will question you about this because it's built in and trusted, and here it is. We don't have to import external unsafe, and because yes, there is some company that they have constraints like library, and they have a pre-approved list of technology they don't want even to get out of it, or they build their ORM module from scratch in order to satisfy their need. Like, why? We could customize what we have. Why we have to do everything? But you sometimes, as a consultant, you have constraints, but you have to find a way.
Yeah.
When it touches money, it's also get approval.
A question regarding the projects. What was your most impressive project regarding the numbers? Biggest RAM, most transactions per second, or whatever. Do you remember something roughly? It doesn't have to be accurate, but what was the most interesting numbers from your past projects?
The ACH switch for ATMs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and how many?
It was like 400 transactions per second.
Okay, it continues. Not bad.
This was like it.
And how many application servers, or how many were there in the background? What was the cluster?
The background, it was built using threading back then, and we have like 3 instances to accommodate all of this. But we were investing at that time in hardware, so we can increase the memory and everything,
which is
and
reasonable.
It cannot be stopped.
Yeah. Which is reasonable because it's cheaper. It's cheaper if you can just increase the hardware and you are done. This is also my advice for the cloud
because
right now.
you just increase the memory and not increasing the whole machine duplicated again and again in order to have resource.
So, and the last more personal question, because I was several times in Romania, delivered some talks, and I was in Cluj, and in Cluj is the near where in Transylvania where the Dracula came from. From time to time. The very first time I was in Cluj, I started, to code something, and Dracula, of course. I used the Dracula as an example, and someone stand up and say, "Stop talking about Dracula. We hate this. Everyone talks about Dracula." Now the question about you: what is the relation to pyramids? Because you are now from Cairo. Were they normal for you? Were you fascinated by them? You wanted you to visit them all the time, or was just how often you visit the pyramids? So what was your relation, or typical relation of a young Egyptian boy to the pyramids?
As a young guy, I will tell you something. My work is like, it was a little bit far, so I have every day to travel.
You were not near pyramids, right? You were not near.
No, I passed by pyramids every day.
Okay.
I passed by pyramids going and back because I passed by and I'm living in Egypt. It was always like, I can visit anytime. Yeah, it's very easy. And then when I moved out, I didn't have the chance to visit the pyramids. So I visited the pyramids when I came from last year from my vacation in Serbia.
No kidding. So before that, you were never at the pyramids?
No, I was when I was so little. My grandfather took me just to visit. I don't remember how it was like, but I remember that I visited the pyramids. But since then, every day, which is literally, if I turn right, I will be up in the pyramids. But I just pass, I see the pyramids. Because we took everything by grant when we see it.
Yeah, exactly. This is typical. This is typical, You saw the entire world, but not your pyramids, right?
Exactly. And when I moved to Serbia, I didn't visit Luxor and Aswan. I always go to Sharm Sheikh and Hurghada to seaside, and there is a lot of beautiful, beautiful places in Egypt, not just pyramids and historical. I didn't while I was living the most of my life there. So don't take anything by grant.
Yeah.
Then when I came to Serbia, no, I have to visit every place because I don't know either I'm going to continue or not, but I know that I'm not going to continue now. So I'm visiting because I'm going to move. Maybe you are the early one or exclusive to know this. I'm going to move to Bulgaria.
Okay.
To the headquarters of my company because it's originally Belgium company, and the R&D and the Department of Development is in Bulgaria. The huge number of employees are in Bulgaria as a development support and everything. The financial sales and every place it's in Belgium, and we have different people around the world. They are working for sales and everything. So I'm going to move maybe this summer. So maybe we will have a chance to meet in Bulgaria and definitely in some conferences.
Yeah, sure.
But I think that we have shared conference or 2 shared conferences. Will be either like the conference for Java Istanbul,
Yeah, yeah. I will talk about web components.
We have. Yes, exactly. You are talking about web components, and I'm going to talk about Java 16 and 17, what's new and what is the relationship between them. And I have Java Summit in Bucharest as well. I don't know either you are there or not. I get invitation for this, but definitely I'm attending your session.
Always a pleasure. So perfect. Thank you.
It's always
where people can find you. So your Twitter, your blog, if you have one, or
I stopped blogging for a while. I'm writing more for Java Magazine and some other like authoring some stuff. So and giving sessions more, to be honest. But if you Twitter, yes, definitely on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. I'm very available on social media.
So what's your Twitter handle?
It's @_ Tamanm.
Okay.
TAMANM.
Perfect. I will just add it to the show notes. So thank you a lot. So I would like to re-invite you back in a year or something, so we can have to talk about the current development, JDK 16, 17, or 18, whatever.
Definitely, it will be my pleasure always.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for inviting me, really, and see you soon.
Bye.
Have a nice day.